And we are live. Happy Friday, everybody. And welcome to the back catalog listening party. My name is Anthony Ihrig, one of the hosts. My other co-host, Ellen Stanley, Mother Banjo, could not join us this week. She had a family obligation. But we are super excited to be hanging out today with two members of the Orange Mighty Trio. We have Zack Kline and we have Nick Gaudette, aka DJ Theory. I have a feeling we're gonna find out more about that moniker coming up. But if you're new to the show, welcome. This is our weekly musical happy hour every Friday afternoon. We get together with our favorite artists and we dive back into an older album. We listen to songs and then talk about writing, arranging, recording, all the kind of nerdy stuff that us musicians love to talk about. And it's really interactive, so jump in the comments. Let us know where you're coming from. Let us know if you have a Friday afternoon beverage. Looks like we have a few friends here already. Chris, back from the cool Northwest to enjoy some Minnesota heat. Yep. Ooh, and Uda Pils Brewing. Nice. Ice cold Uda Pils beer. Hey, Chris. And we have Connie in Richfield. Hello, Connie. And Anne, happy Friday to you as well. And Rose says, Mr. Gaudette must be maybe a student, perhaps.
Yep.
And Joe is starting the week's journey from South Minneapolis with a vodka tonic. All right. Getting the party started. I'm going with the Avery Brewing's White Rascal. It's like a Belgian white ale, and it tastes really good on a hot day like today. Are you guys having any sort of happy hour beverages or just hydrating today?
I'm just hydrating.
I'll get to mine later on, but I've been liking the Lake Monster Depth Charge. I feel like that's a delicious brew. If you haven't been up off of Cretan Vandalia exit, right inside St. Paul, so totally worth the trek.
All right, that's a good tip for us local back catalog friends. It looks like our good friend Steve Schley here says hi to Zach. Steve from the band Free Range Pickin'.
That goes back like 20 years to when we met too, Tony, you and I.
That's right. So Steve and I were in a band, and that's when we met Zach, who would sit in with us from time to time. And Bevan in Connecticut. Hello, Bevan, and welcome everybody. This is just, it's so great to have you all here, and I'm so excited for you to hear the music that these guys put together, because it really is a kind of a special eclectic mix of all kinds of stuff. But why don't we have them give a brief kind of bio of the band? So for those of you who haven't heard the Orange Mighty Trio, you can get a kind of sense of where they're coming from. One of you guys want to talk a little bit about that?
Maybe I'll start, and Nick, you can jump in too, Nick. Basically, I had met our piano player, Mike, in college. We didn't play much then, but like once we both graduated, I wanted to get a band together, and he was like the person I knew in town that I thought I wanted to play with. And then Nick and I had met at a music camp that still goes on, and we had taught together. And I just had this thought when I got to know him over those summer camp years, like, I would like to be in a band with this guy, but he was actually away in Cleveland doing his college. And so right after I got together with Mike, I found out Nick was back and called him up. So
definitely Zach was the mastermind in getting us all together. So I definitely give you props for that, Zach. And it was a blast. So started playing gigs at the Dunn Brothers in St. Paul on the McAllister,
nice.
The McAllister
Grand, the Grand Avenue Dunns.
Yeah, and that actually may be where I met you, Tony, speaking of that.
Very possible. I used to live just down the street, and that was some of my first gigs as well. So, Zach, you're on fiddle, violin. We can talk about the differences between those. Yep. And Nick on the upright bass. And the third member of the trio who isn't with us today, Mike, is piano, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right on. So so you finally got yours together, and where did the impetus for like the first recording come from?
So I was about to be moving away, and we had been kind of rehearsing and getting repertoire for like almost a year, or maybe like you know, a little less than a year. So it was like, okay, let's get some stuff recorded while we have energy in this project. And it was like instantly, I think, something that we all loved. Once we started playing together, that we just were all, quite excited and happy about it. As you, I'm sure, have experienced, sometimes you just start playing with people and you're like, these are the people I should play with.
Exactly.
Definitely,
So,
that's what it felt like. It felt like each one of us we could be ourselves musically within the ensemble, and I think that was such a rare find to make that fit on so many different levels. The way that we were able to like kind of share the sonic space together was fantastic. So, and I think that fueled us to like want us to do more. And Zack was the one that came with a handful of the first round of ideas to create just the first EP recording. And I got to give him props for that because he's the one that kind of took the chance on putting all us in the same room. But it just does. It snowballed as we went along, and I think that through the second album, through the third album, it's just been a real treat to be part of.
And the album that you picked out for us to listen to today is Infrastructure. And was that your first full length CD then?
yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
We recorded like 5 songs before I moved. And then maybe a year later, so I had to commute back to get the recording done in Minneapolis while I was in Chicago. But then that was this album we're doing today, which was the first full length, like you said.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait for people to hear this music. So I think we should just start out, dive right into some music. And the first track that we have queued up is Point A. Is there anything you want to say about this tune before we give it a listen?
I got something to say, if I can. And this is one of Zack's tunes, which is fantastic. But I think one of the times where this piece came out of its shell was actually we were performing it during the graduation at the St. Paul Conservatory for Performing Artists, and we actually did a joint piece, or we did a piece, the Point A, with a dance company or dance troupe from the school. And I think that is something that we did for years after that. But it was such a cool way to kind of put music and dance together in the performance space. And I think it was at the Fitzgerald, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, right. This was a good one for collaborating with dancers.
Yeah, well, and for those who aren't familiar, Fitzgerald is a wonderful theater in St. Paul, Minnesota. Well, let's give it a listen, and if anybody out there feels like dancing, go for it. Tell us what you think in the comments, and enjoy Point A from the Orange Mighty Trio here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. right. That is Point A from the Orange Mighty Trio here on the back catalog listening party. We're revisiting their 2009 release Infrastructure. And I'm with Joe here saying this is fantastic. You got to use both ears on this one, and headphones highly encouraged. That sounded absolutely beautiful, you guys. Any thoughts on listening back to it?
Oh yeah, it just kind of takes us. It takes me back. It's like a time travel, to this golden era of our band where like we were talking about right just a minute ago before the show, when we had plentiful time to rehearse and travel, and we didn't even know if we were going to make money, but we would do some touring, like all these things we used to do. So that's like my first thought. And I have a couple of things I could say also about the composition in a minute. But what about you, Nick?
This album in general, the Infrastructure album, and starting with the Point A, it was I think it was the first album that we really toured with, and it was so cool to take the album named Infrastructure on the road, and we were having a blast with that throughout all the places we went. So, and that one's also got a special place in my heart because it is just a violin and a bass duet. There it is, summer tour of 2009. So
yes, look
that's
at
it.
That.
Yeah, we loaded up in a Dodge Magnum where we could fit the electric keyboard, the bass, and all of our gear, and we played a wedding gig in west of the cities, and we jumped in the car after that gig, and we drove down to LA, and we made it to LA 2 hours before our next gig.
So oh my goodness! Were you on The Price is Right or something? I see.
Well, just in the audience, yeah, we had fun just attending the show.
Yeah, Watts Towers. Yeah.
Speaking of infrastructure, fascinating. So, all right. So this was this your first kind of tour around the country?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the biggest tour we ever did. Yeah, and it was our first like long one.
Nice. I'll put a link for those of you who are just listening to the show. There's some great pictures from their tour in the summer of 2009 that I'm showing on the screen, and I'll put a link to this in the show notes so you can check it out too. Because your music is so cinematic, anyways. Like it is. I think it would be kind of fun exercise maybe to scroll through those pictures while listening.
Yeah. This one actually did get into one of our friends' movies as well.
Nice.
That one we just heard.
And someone had mentioned, and we actually, Joni was just talking about that too. You've performed on soundtracks for film, yes, and I'm sure it really suits. The music really suits that kind of context. And somebody in the comments had mentioned interpretive dancing. When you mention dancing, a lot of times when people think about dancing and the music we have on the show, often it's more like maybe folk dancing or something like this. But was there interpretive dance going on with this?
There's a spatial element, I think, with this music where it's very, if I were to think kind of in terms, it's very horizontal, like it's a landscape, and I think that's like what why it lends itself to dance. I feel like it lends itself to being like a sonic backdrop for some kind of movement that's happening before it. So it creates like a depth. It's not just like a one window into one person dancing, but it's got this like panoramic view. And I think that's why some people like our music for films, is because we have that ability. And we don't have vocals either. So that kind of also helps us kind of get into just the sound as much as we can. So,
and it has just tons of space. I mean, that's just in all this, like trio, you really can play with the space as almost another musical element, right? And I'd love to hear a little bit about the way that you guys kind of compose and arrange together. Do you guys do you have one person bring like a piece like this to the band, or and say this is it's in its final form, or are you guys kind of sculpting this as a group?
Yeah, so it depends on the piece, and this one was planned by me actually. When we were listening to it, I was thinking about how natural and improvisationally Nick was taking the planned notes and just making such an alive performance. So it's something I like about our band anyway. We can, if we're taking planned notes, we can make it feel like improv. In some ways we can stretch things, but then also we can improvise together, which we do on other pieces. or certain sections of other pieces where just no one knows what they're going to do.
Yeah, I think we cue off of like just looks and little movements. Like there's like we're taking so many cues that are beyond just the music, just like the actual setting of a bow and pulling through, and that's why it's great to have three people, is because we can be closer together when we're on a stage or we're performing, so we can really hone in on the little small details, which makes it like it turns into it's like we're communicating without using words, and just using body movement mainly. So
Nice. Well, the recording is gorgeous. You mentioned that you recorded it here in Minneapolis at the Wild Sound Studios. And can you kind of tell us a little bit about that session? Was this just the three of you in the big room at Wild doing this?
Yeah, we were like, we want to be in the same room so we can really do that interaction and feel the most comfortable that we can, because if for people who haven't recorded, sometimes you're listening on headphones and it's very unnatural, and it's kind of just hard to do it like the way you would perform it. So we were just all in one room, and that obviously means that it's more real, because you can't, if you're in separate rooms, you can go and fix two notes here and there, you can, but we just had to just do it a little more honest, like, a minimum of editing and a minimum of fixing anything, which is really actually pretty enjoyable.
Well, it sounds amazing. Can you talk a little bit about who engineered this record? Because I think he's a master.
Yeah, so I wish he were still engineering, but this guy, his name is Matthew Zimmerman, and he is the owner of Wild Sound, and did that for like 20 years. So I feel like he was at his peak, probably, right before he basically retired from running it.
Yeah. And did he have some nice big room mics, picking up some of that spatial, element of
I think
the
he
music?
had like, the binaural mic, which imitates the human head.
Oh yeah.
And gives this cool realism. So there was like a room mic like that, which is,
As well as some individual mics on your instruments.
Yeah, I give props to any recording engineer who can capture the sound of an arcoed bass and have it like actually stick out and have it be present. And I think that's like one of the hardest instruments to actually capture. And the Wild Sound setup that we had, I think it was fantastic. Obviously, I had like 3 different inputs and 3 different mics to balance from, but they did a fantastic job actually capturing the sound of a bowed bass with the bite of the hair and everything like that. So
right. Yeah. For the nerds. Yeah. There's this balance.
Yeah.
There's this balance between what happens on the micro level, the close level. There's noise. There's all this noise happening with a bow when a bow goes over a string. So you want enough of that, but then the sound develops, way on the other side of the room. That's where it develops fully. So you have to kind of balance both.
Or like the fingers going down on the fingerboard, which is up here, and the bow's happening here, and the sound's happening over here. I mean, it's like there's so many moving components. So
yeah, just to get that realism, like you mentioned, but it sounds really good. And as Joe had mentioned in the comments earlier, even better on headphones. If you have some nice ones or some good speakers, definitely want to put them on. And now this is with that in mind. Now I can imagine the microphones and all of that, and I'm going to be listening for the bow across the strings and everything like that. And I want you all to do the same as we listen to this next track, which
that will be your assignment.
That is your assignment.
Students, listen.
And it's for a song called "The Long Zoom." Is there anything you want to say about that before we take a listen?
Yes, this is Mike's piece, and it's kind of like a piano etude. And I remember hearing him. He had composed it, and he put it on his final recital in college, and it was just like, what is he doing? He's like bouncing his fingers. The thumbs are both going on the same key. And then we just took that texture, and we had the strings kind of play what he was playing as best we could. In the second half, there's a string explosion, we call it.
And we made a music video on this one too. So if you want to check out the music video, type in the Long Zoom Orange Mighty Trio on YouTube, and it's pretty hilarious. I don't want to say more about that, but it's pretty fun.
It's a little bit slightly ridiculous.
Well, we will definitely put a link to that in the show notes as well, which is just back catalog listening party /115. But now let's give it a listen. I remember we got to tune in to all those things they were talking about, and now we're listening for a string explosion as well. Was that what you said, a string explosion?
That was just our nickname for it, yeah.
All right, let's give it a listen. This is the Long Zoom from the Orange Mighty Trio here on the back catalog listening party. That's Long Zoom by the Orange Mighty Trio here on the back catalog listening party, and it's an apt description of the string explosion. That really cool. And we had a couple questions. People were loving that one, by the way. We had wonderful and this is amazing. People really digging that tune. But Joni had a question for you, picking up on that idea of composing for films. And do you either of you have any favorite films for your compositions?
I don't know if I have a favorite, but basically what happened is Mike had a childhood friend who's doing a lot of films, and his wife as well. They started using us, and then like people saw that, and a bunch of other indie filmmakers got a hold of us, and then also a local guy named Daniel Kline.
Perennial Plate.
Yeah, Perennial Plate is his online video series. So we just got stuff out there, which is really cool. I don't really have a favorite, but it's actually kind of led me into one of the things I'm doing now, which is doing advertising, things that will work for advertising.
Okay.
But it all kind of started with this album and getting into the indie films.
Very cool. And Joe was mentioning after we talked about YouTube that he was scrolling through and saw all kinds of videos and wanted to know if you have any favorite videos that you want people to watch while they're on YouTube.
There's a really cool recording talking about film and music that we did. We actually performed with the Square Lake Music and Film Festival back in the day, and we were actually one of the bands that played a live score along with an old black and white film. It was like an old what was it, Twilight Zone episode of an occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, and we actually there was a lot of source material for our third album that we came out with, labeled 3, but we did a live performance to score to that video, and I believe it's up on YouTube. So check out
it is.
Owl Creek, yeah.
It is,
it was really fun. And actually, if you listen to that or watch that video and that album that's connected to it, then listen to the album 3, and you'll be able to hear the source material that we used to create a new album. So yeah, it's super fun. And that was a trip. That was a lot of fun to do that. So.
Awesome. Well, we will also link to that in the show notes. The show notes are going to be long for this one. I love it. Lots of fun things to listen for. And Chris mentions Holy Carpal Tunnel, Batman. I think maybe referencing just how kind of virtuosic all of this playing is. And I think that's something that people don't realize is how much goes into playing music like this, with this much intricacy and speed and precision. And I see, Nick, you have a T-shirt that says "Classically Trained" with a cool little video game remote. But
yes.
You, in fact, are classically trained and are a teacher. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Minnesota.
Yep,
Where are you teaching? It sounds like we might have a few of your students in our comments today.
Yeah, they jumped on. That's pretty great. And it's summer break, so they're giving up their summer to come listen, which is great. No, I teach at orchestra at Edina High School, so I'm actually the director of the top 3 groups from grades 10 through 12. So we have a great time. We have, we try to do similar kind of things where we walk that line of, is it classical, is it jazz, is it bluegrass, and just trying to get an idea of all the different styles of music that are out there. So yeah,
very cool. Well, this would be like a first place to send anybody who's interested in discovering the melting pot of styles. We had talked a little bit before the show, actually, Nick, about that you had some bluegrass in your background. Zack, like we were talking about, you were fiddling with bluegrass bands back in the day. Can you talk a little bit about how you're, whether it's conscious or not, you're trying to kind of bring these worlds together? Because oftentimes you have these purists that are like, well, this is bluegrass and this is classical, and everyone's got their feeling of how it should be. But every now and again you get a group like you guys who are really kind of bringing all of these different influences together, and I think it brings more people to both sides. Can you speak to a little bit to that and how you approach that kind of bringing the styles together?
It's funny to try to say how we approach it, because it's kind of always been our approach to try all kinds of stuff. Like Nick has played a lot of tango, and once in a while we do something from that side. But I think it's just that all of us are, people who have done all these different types of music and loved them all, starting with classical. But then Mike had this great jazz teacher in high school, and I was playing with bands in high school. Nick was playing with all kinds of bands. So we just have all these, we have too many interests in a way. And, so it's just kind of the natural thing to sort of put them all together.
Okay.
The style has never defined us, and I think that's one of the most freeing things, right? We never have said we are this type of band, and we play just that music. And the fact that we dance through all these different types of genres makes it fun and makes it enjoyable. So, especially as a bass player, I just got to say, as a bass player, bluegrass can be super boring unless you just like playing 1-4-5-1, and and there's a lot of things going on. So it's really great to play with bandmates who can drop in and do bass lines. Even Zack will take out his octave fiddle sometimes and play the low notes, allowing me to kind of explore the upper octaves of the bass. And as a bass player, that's a dream come true. I mean, we don't need any more bass solos, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of fun.
I'd argue that we could use a few more.
So I suppose so.
Yeah, but people confuse Nick for a cello player oftentimes, because he's really just 95% of the time playing with the bow.
It's true.
Well,
Yeah.
it has, yeah, just another melodic element to the trio. It's really great. Chris had a question. He noticed that you both have some instruments behind you. I saw a banjo and a ukulele, electric guitar, and just wants to know, do you play all these instruments? And two, where's the upright bass?
Ooh, it's a good one. Well, I will tell you, the bass doesn't fit in my my closet office down here, but maybe I could go grab it. So I've got a very, very large instrument. It's actually a 7/8, so it's part 3/4 size, part full size. It's got 5 strings on it now, so I actually have a high C string, so I can jump up into the super high registers, and I also have a low C extension. So, anyways, but I do play these instruments. I think. Zach, do I have any of your instruments on my wall? There's a time where we were switching around instruments and borrowing from one another, which was a blast. But Zach probably does more individual playing than I do of the smaller instruments.
Yeah, it's kind of very inspiring for me to learn these other things. I even can get around a little bit on the banjo, Tony.
All right.
I can play some melodies, and I figured out the Bill Keith style of fingering a little bit.
The melodic style. Nice.
Yeah, so that's super fun. But I just use that mostly for inspiration, kind of, but because I always come back to my first love that holds my attention more than anything, which is the fiddle. Should I talk about the fiddle and violin?
Why don't you? I think that's something
like a public service announcement.
I feel like it needs to be talked about.
So this is a fiddle, and it's a violin. It's really just what you play on it. And I think a fiddle is somewhat of a nickname for it. Maybe it comes from French or something, like the French word for the viol. The older instrument called the viol became like fiole or something in French. I don't know where it comes from, but yeah, it's just when you are playing non-classical, basically anything that's dance-oriented, kind of folk music, as even jazz, that would be in the fiddle category. But I think most people, everything is pretty much the same. There's not a whole lot, there might be a different set of strings for someone who's in Nashville playing bluegrass all the time, but otherwise it's really just the same.
It's just how you're playing it. As our fiddle player in the bluegrass band I play in says, it's a fiddle when you buy it and a violin when you sell it.
Nice.
I haven't heard that one.
Yep. Just get different price brackets there.
I should probably give praise to Mike Vosich too, who's our piano player, because one of the things that he does with the piano, which is interesting, is we call it the piano banjo sound, and actually he'll go in and bounce and do kind of like almost like a banjo plucking style, but he mimics that on a piano, so that's also another fun texture that we're able to throw on there. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I would definitely want to see if we can't get through all this music that we have lined up today. So let's jump into the next track, Infrastructure, the title track. Anything you want to say about it before we listen?
Well, when we were introducing it on our tour, we would always just say it's kind of like a jig gone crazy. So it is in 6/8. Yeah, one of the things for all my pieces on this album is that there were some chords I was playing around with. And so I was really playing around a lot with like these chords that are like a sixth apart that are major chords. So like you're a major third below the tonic playing this other major chord. And just like, so it's actually kind of like a war between those two chords in this piece.
Oh, fascinating. All right, well, let's give it a listen. This is Infrastructure from the Orange Mighty Trio here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. That's Infrastructure from the Orange Mighty Trio here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. We are talking to Zack Kline and Nick Gaudette of the band, two of the three members of the band, about their 2009 full-length CD, Infrastructure. And it is, we're a little over halfway in the show, and we haven't talked about how you can purchase this music yet. I've been so excited about listening. I want you all to know that it sounds even better when you're listening to the high-res WAV files, and you can get those high-resolution files yourself by going to Bandcamp. Great service at orangemightytrio.bandcamp.com. You can pick up this album, and Bandcamp allows you to pay what you want. So if you're interested in tipping the band, it's a great way that you can show your support. And I just looked, and it looks like the digital album is only $5. Way underpriced, you guys. It's only $5 on Bandcamp. So you should go there and add another digit or two to that in the pay what you want category. And then we also found out before we started this broadcast that there are a few physical copies around that have survived, that have made it since 2009. Just a handful of these, and they didn't know they even existed. Look at this. There they are, folks.
Yeah, Nick just found those. He just found those.
Only a handful left, and they were kind enough to let our audience be the folks that get to get that wonderful handmade art. Is that right, Zack?
Yeah, we screen printed those by hand. My wife and I did.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, and you really would have a rare find, because there's not a lot of those. Nora says, I want a CD. Well, if you want one, you can get one. You just send a message to hello.orangemightytrio.com. That's the email for the band, and let them know what you're interested in purchasing, the album or more, maybe the whole discography. And you can send them your address, and I'm sure they would be more than happy to.
They're only $100 each.
Limited time run. That's right.
$100 each. No, probably 15.
So Chris is asking if we ordered from the correct place. I'm not sure, Chris, but you can definitely. Why don't you send an email to that hello@orangemightytrio.com.
Yeah, if it was through our website, that should work fine too.
And that would work as well, and you'll get one of these limited edition copies.
I see your email. Yes. We'll get to you.
It worked in real time here. A true patron of the arts, Chris. Thank you, and anybody else, this is the time to do it before they're gone. And if you're more in the digital space, again, you could stream this. I saw earlier in the comments people were asking about Apple Music and Spotify, and I do believe these are on those streaming platforms. But if you really want to hear it in all of its glory, I highly recommend either getting WAV files or FLAC files, which are uncompressed formats where you can hear.
And most people probably know this, but we get about 1/10 of a cent, for a stream. We get like a tiny sliver of a penny. So
if you want to stream it, just go to 2,000 libraries across the United States and log into 2,000 different Spotify accounts, and then listen to each one of them, and then we'll make some money.
Or just buy one CD, and that'll be the equivalent of about 10 years of streaming.
It'll be about the equivalent of 15 million streams or something like that. Yeah. I think it's like $1 million streams $1, basically, something like that. So,
well,
I know that make it in. We're still waiting.
Right. I know that our regular listeners are always happy to support the artists, and we would encourage you all to do that as well. It lets them know how much we appreciate their music that they're putting out there, and maybe entice them to collaborate again in the future. But we have a couple more songs we want to get to before the end of the hour, so I want to make sure we get to both of them. The next song we have queued up is called The Junction.
Ooh, I like the name of this one. I do. This one is for Minneapolis people. You're probably going to know about it. Zach, go ahead. Tell them what the source material for this one.
So, the whole album is themed with that theme of infrastructure, transportation and infrastructure, and that just came from a joke. I was stuck in traffic, on a way to a lesson, I think, And then I got to the lesson and we were studying Irish tunes. There's all these, like the Glen Road to Carrick, the Road to Lisdoonvarna, the Rocky Road to Dublin, like all these road songs. And then fiddle American tunes are like all these river songs, which are essentially, they were transportation too, because the river boat stuff. So I was like, I think I should do my own version of, you know, a transportation fiddle tune. And this was eventually what I came up with.
Adding your spin to the genre.
But
Yes.
it's named after, originally in the beginning, Zach named it after the junction of 35 and 94. So if you all know where 35 and 94 are in the Minneapolis, you'll probably be very familiar with that blockade.
Right. Yeah, we shortened the title, but that now you know the actual behind the scenes. It was the junction of 35 and 94.
All right, well, let's give it a listen. This is The Junction from the Orange Mighty Trio here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. That is the junction from the Orange Mighty Trio here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. And wow, there was a lot going on there. Your fiddle was showing on that one, Zach. And I mean, just the different movements. And now that I have the backstory of of it being on the freeway, the stopping and the starting, and the hopeful movement, and then now you're.
I would joke when I would introduce this one. My joke was like, this shows the 7 stages of grief of being stuck in traffic.
Yeah, exactly. And Chris made an interesting comment here. He says, "Beautiful three-way tug of war," and I was hearing just so much interplay between the different movements and the different rhythms, and kind of you passing different parts off to each other and mingling in it. Really, really, really beautiful.
Yeah,
So,
thanks.
And for anybody who's encountered that junction here in the Twin Cities, now that might be your way of getting through it. Get that one on your
listen to
playlist.
this piece.
Yeah, and that was before that was after the construction of 35, the completed construction. So this is before the completed construction. So this is when everything was always gridlock all the time. So
I remember. It kind of still is somehow. I don't know how that happened, but I just wanted to get to one question that I had missed that I saw during this last one. This comes from Joni, who is a chamber bassoonist herself, and was just wondering about your thoughts on kind of the music industry and the kind of the weight that's given to more vocal-based music, and if you feel like there's any movement towards instrumentalists. Any thoughts or comments about Joni's question?
Some people who are older than me, who have been doing music longer, tell me the singers are the only ones who make a lot of money. So that does happen. They're the stars. They're embodying the music. They're like a different kind of musician, even too. I think
everybody can relate to them. Everybody relates to them, right? Because we have voices, and if you can relate to somebody talking, then it is something that you can think about or even hum along with. It's hard to like sit in your car and be like, you're trying to play the bass. You need 2 hands for that. You can't. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I don't know if I have any insights about the music industry, but there's room for everybody, and I don't know. The goal for me is like the violin can be my voice.
Mm-hmm.
If you know your instrument well enough, then it's just like, just as natural, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, this hour is going by really, really fast. For those of you who maybe just tuned in, we're talking to Zack and Nick of the Orange Mighty Trio, 2/3 of the band, about their 2009 album Infrastructure. We've been listening to tracks and talking about them on the Back Catalog Listening Party. This is what we do every week. We get together and we listen to music and we nerd out about the liner notes that none of us can see anymore. And I want to be respectful of your time. We do have one more track, but we're coming close to the end of the hour. So I just wanted to see if you guys are up for one more, or should we close her out?
Sure, I'm up for it.
All right. All right. I'm sure everybody out there watching would love to hear one more track as well. So the final track that we have here today is called Waltz of the Traffic Patterns. Okay. A theme going on here.
Right.
Is there anything you want to say about this one?
Yeah, it fits the theme. And there also are a little bit of like connected elements in these pieces. I'll just talk about that just for a second. Mm-hmm. Where point A had those notes, and then the junction had so kind of like playing around with these, jumping up to E, jumping up to D, E and D sharp, E and D, and so this piece just continues with that, but it's up high this time. So it's the same kind of notes. It was just kind of a way to get inspired and hopefully like draw things like together in a related way, even though it doesn't matter whether the listener knows it or not. It was just a way for me to get ideas, if nothing else. But that's where this melody comes from. It just comes from playing with the ideas that I was trying to put throughout.
That is so awesome. And for those of us who hadn't picked up on that yet, now we can listen for those types of details. This is the kind
Yeah,
of stuff you
right.
don't, you only get when you have liner notes or talk to the artist. So we really appreciate you sharing that, Zach. That's
Oh, yes.
super cool.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
All
it
right.
doesn't make it any deeper of a composition, really, that it has motives going, but that's what Beethoven did. So it's just a way you can get ideas, if nothing else.
All right, well, let's give it a listen. This is Waltz of the Traffic Pattern from the Orange Mighty Trio here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. It's the Orange Mighty Trio Waltz of the Traffic Pattern here on the back catalog listening party, and just gorgeous and just a perfect way to kind of wrap it up today, because that was so calming. The junction, we were frantically trying to make it through the intersection of 35 and 94, and I feel like this last one, somehow I got onto East River Road or something, and it's just driving at my speed. Beautiful stuff, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend an hour with us here today on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Thanks for having us, Anthony. Thank you so much.
Super fun. And thanks for everyone out there for coming.
Yes, I also would like to thank everybody for your wonderful comments. And it looks like a few new fans of the band and some people purchasing the albums. Once again, I'm going to say that if you're interested in hearing this music in its kind of high resolution form, you can either get the digital download at Bandcamp, Orange Mighty Trio. Bandcamp.com, and they put it on there for $5, but I'm gonna say you could throw a little something else in to their tip jar, or if you want to be if you really want the goods, you can purchase one of 7 last physical CDs that exist in this world with handmade art and all the sonic goodness that captured digitally on the CD by just sending an email to hello@orangemightytrio.com and let them know what you're interested in. And they're
$500 now.
They're $500.
Yeah, they're going up. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they'll be more reasonable, but worth every penny. Joni says thank you to everyone. Another amazing show, and I agree. This was just a very, very special, and it has everything to do with folks like you, Zach and Nick, for sharing your art, and for all of you out there who love music and support music and come every week and let the artists know how much you appreciate it. It really keeps this going, and I think that's what the world needs now more than ever. So a special shout out to our faithful Patreon supporters. When this thing started in March of 2020, we didn't know what was going to happen, but they insisted that we keep it going even when the world opened up. So a huge thank you to Penny Ann, Alinda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Alan, Chris, Becky, Galen, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, and John, Fred, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn, Court, Matt, Steve, Mark, the Homestead Pick and Parlor, Severin, Lynn, Craig, Jake, Mary, Many Tracks, and Nikki, and possibly you, if you're interested in supporting independent musicians. We have a little Patreon community where we give sneak peeks of who's coming up. We have after parties. Some guests will stay after the show and perform over a Zoom call. So just some of the perks that you can get as part of our Patreon community. Definitely sign up if you're interested. But if nothing else, just thank you so much for being here on YouTube. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. That tells the Google bots that more people should go to see Zach and Nick, and it'll get their music into more people's hands. And you can subscribe to the channel if you're interested in the more episodes in the future. But once again, Zach, Nick, DJ Theory. Real quick, do you want to talk about DJ Theory? Because
it's my gamer tag. It's my gamer tag. It's what I call myself every time we do scales.
and as a reminder, yes, he's also a teacher as well, and I'm sure the kids really enjoy that. And Zach, we'll be looking out for the next car commercial where we hear really beautiful violin on it. It just might be from Zack Kline.
Yeah, you might never know. You might not even be able to track it down, but it could be.
And Zach, you have for people who are interested in kind of the stuff you're doing right now, can you give us your website?
Yeah, it's just my name, ZackKline.com. You can see the spelling, I guess, right there.
Yep, it's ZackKline.com. Zack Kline. You can catch up on everything that he's doing. And again, we're going to put all those links we were talking about into the show notes on our website. And we just appreciate y'all for being here and sharing music together. Hope you have a great weekend. It's officially summer, and we look forward to seeing you next week here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. Until then, on behalf of Ellen Stanley, cheers. We'll see you next week on the Back Catalog Listening Party.